Hi guys, it's Princess Mia, and today I am back with part 2 of Cinderella. But before I get started, I would like to shout out my little cousins Isabel and Maddie, who are in Ottawa right now. I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe during this confusing and kind of scary time. Now, let's get into this. Chapter 6. Lady Tremaine and the stepsisters wanted breakfast. They wanted it right away. Cinderella bustled around the kitchen, getting the trays ready. She didn't see poor little Gus trapped under the teacup. She didn't wonder why Lucifer were lurking around. She grabbed the other 2 teacups and set them upside down on their saucers. Lucifer looked at the cups, confused which one Gus was under. The bell rang again, and Cinderella gathered up the trays and started up the stairs. Lucifer was not about to lose Gus again. He followed behind, close on Cinderella's heels. Cinderella knocked at the first door and entered. "Good morning, Drizella," she said cheerfully. "Sleep well?" Drizella answered. "As if you cared." She sniffed at her breakfast. "Take that ironing," she ordered. "Have it back in 1 hour. You hear? 1 hour. "Yes, Drizella," said Cinderella. Cinderella picked up the laundry and continued down the hall. Lucifer followed her into the second bedroom. "Good morning, Anastasia," said Cinderella. She set down her stepsister's breakfast tray. "Well, it's about time," said Anastasia. Cinderella started out of the room. "Don't forget the mending," Anastasia barked after her. "And don't be all day getting it done either." "Yes, Anastasia," said Cinderella. Cinderella delivered the last breakfast tray to her stepmother. Lady Tremaine had even more jobs to add to Cinderella's long list. "Pick up the laundry," she said, "and then get on with all your other chores." As Cinderella was about to leave the room, a terrible scream pierced the air. It was Anastasia. She had just lifted up her teacup and had found poor little Gus. "Mother, mother!" she shouted. Gus scampered out of the cup, off the bed, and out the door. Lucifer was waiting for him in the hall. He had his claws poised and open. Gus ran right into them, and Anastasia ran into her mother's room. "A big ugly mouse," she cried, "under my teacup. Cinderella did it. She put it there." Cinderella hurried into the hall to look for Lucifer. There he was, right outside Anastasia's room. She knew right away what had happened. "All right," she said to Lucifer. "Come on, let him go." She lifted the cat up. There was Gus underneath his foot. "Oh, Lucifer," said Cinderella. Gus scrambled away into a nearby mouse hole. Once again, the day was saved. "Cinderella," Lady Tremaine called from her bedroom. She was angry. If Cinderella had nothing better to do than play nasty tricks, then she would just have to think of more jobs for her. "Now let me see," she said. "There's the large carpet in the main hall. Clean it. And windows upstairs and down. Wash them. Oh, yes, and the tapestries and draperies." "But I just finished those," said Cinderella. "Do them again," shouted her stepmother. She was hardly finished. "Don't forget the garden," she went on. "Then scrub the terrace, sweep the halls and stairs, clean the chimney, and, of course, there's mending and sewing in the laundry." Poor Cinderella! How would she ever finish? Lady Tremaine looked down at Lucifer. Sweet little Lucifer, innocent little Lucifer. Lucifer could do no wrong. She smiled at her pet and stroked his ears. "Oh, yes," she said. She thought of one last job for Cinderella to do. She smiled at her cat. "See that Lucifer gets his bath." Now we're in Chapter 7. That morning, the Tremaine household was not the only one in bad temper. Across the kingdom in the castle, the king himself was angry. Royally angry. He was angry at his son, the prince. He wanted the prince to get married. He wanted the prince to have kids. He called the duke into his chambers to talk to him about it. "My son has been avoiding responsibility for long enough," the king shouted. He pounded his fist on his desk. "It's high time he married and settled down." "Of course, your majesty," said the duke, "but we must be patient." "I am patient," shouted the king. He picked up an ink bottle off his desk and threw it against the wall. "But I'm not getting any younger, you know." He said, "I want to see my grandchildren before I go." "I understand, sire," said the Duke. No, you don't, shouted the king. He started to sniffle. You don't know what it means to see your only child grow further away. He laid his head against the duke's chest and began to cry. I'm lonely in a desolate old palace. Now, your majesty, said the duke, perhaps if you just left the prince alone. Let him alone? The king shouted. He was angry. Again. With his silly romantic ideas, the king was not about to sit around and wait for the prince to fall in love. Who could know when that might happen? The king had ideas of his own. His idea was to hold a ball for the prince. They would invite all the eligible young women in the kingdom. But your majesty, said the duke, the boy's coming home today, isn't he? Said the king. Yes, sire, said the duke. Well, what could be more natural than a ball to celebrate his return, said the king. If any eligible young women in the kingdom just happen to be there, he's bound to show interest in one of them, isn't he? The duke could hardly argue. Yes, sire, he said. The king ordered the duke to arrange the ball. Soft lights, he said, romantic music, and all the trimmings. Very well, sire, said the duke. It would be a big job, but he'd have to do it. When do you want the ball, he asked. Tonight, said the king. Tonight? Sputtered the duke. He was stunned. There wasn't time. Tonight, ordered the king. It can't fail, and make sure every eligible young woman is there. Now, chapter 8, guys. Cinderella was in the front hall scrubbing the floor when she heard a knock on the door. Open in the name of the king, someone called. Cinderella opened the door. It was a messenger. An urgent message from His Imperial Majesty, he said. He handed Cinderella a letter. From the king? Cinderella's mice sons gathered around. What's it say? Cinderella curtsied to the messenger and shut the door. I don't know, she said. Down the hall in the piano room, Lady Tremaine and the stepsisters were having their music lessons. Drizella was singing at the top of her lungs, and Anastasia was accompanying her on the flute. Unfortunately, neither of them could carry a tune. The sound of the music was awful. Even Lucifer had fled the room. Cinderella examined the letter. She had There's pictures. Strict instructions never to interrupt the music lesson. But the messenger says it's urgent, she said. She knocked at the music door. Lady Tremaine was angry when she saw Cinderella. I've warned you never to interrupt us, she said. But this just arrived, said Cinderella. From the palace. From the palace? Said Drizella. She snatched the letter. Let me have it, said Anastasia. She snatched it back. I'll read it, said Lady Tremaine. She stepped in and took the letter herself. Well, she announced, there's to be a ball. A ball, cried the stepsisters. Lady Tremaine continued. It's in honor of His Highness, the Prince, by royal command. She said every eligible young woman is to attend. Why, that's us. I'm so eligible. Cinderella's heart soared. She stepped into the room. Why, that means I can go too, she said. Drizella looked at her and started to laugh. She said, her dancing with the prince? Well, why not? Said Cinderella. She would not be laughed at. I'm still a member of the family, and besides, it says by royal command every eligible young woman is to attend. Lady Tremaine looked down at the letter. Yes, so it does, she said. There was no getting around it. Cinderella was right. Well, said Lady Tremaine, I see no reason why you can't go, she shrugged her shoulders. That is, if you can get all your work done. Okay, I will, I promise, said Cinderella. And, said the stepmother, if you can find something suitable to wear. Oh, thank you, stepmother, said Cinderella. I'm sure I can. She hurried out of the room to get started. If she was going to the ball, she had a lot to do. Anastasia looked at Drizella, and Drizella looked at Anastasia. Had they really heard their mother right? Their mother actually said Cinderella could go to the ball? Mother, said Drizella, do you realize what you said? Lady Tremaine smiled slyly. She knew exactly what she'd said. Of course, she sneered. I said if. Oh, said Drizella. It all came clear. If, smiled Drizella. Lady Tremaine nodded and laughed a vicious laugh. Now, chapter 9. High up in her attic room, packed away in a dusty trunk, Cinderella did have a dress. Maybe it would be just the thing to wear to the ball, she said. She opened the trunks and pulled the dress out. The mice and birds gathered around it to see. Isn't it lovely? She said to her friends. She held the dress high. It was my mother's. None of the animals knew quite what to say. Maybe their dress had once been beautiful, maybe a long time ago, but now, well, it was hardly a dress to wear to a ball. One of the mice stepped forward carefully. She said, but a dress old. Maybe it is a little old-fashioned, said Cinderella, but I'll fix that. Cinderella took a book from her sewing basket and paged through it. There ought to be some good ideas in here. She said, aha! She found just the one, this one. Cinderella pointed to the picture. I'll have to shorten the sleeve, she said. I'll need a sash and a ruffle, something for the collar, and then Cinderella! Someone was calling from downstairs. Oh, now what do they want, said Cinderella. She touched her dress longingly. She had so many ideas. Cinderella! Cinderella! Oh, well, said Cinderella. I guess my dress will just have to wait. Cinderella! All right. I'm coming. She called. Jacques and Gus watched sadly as she ran back down the stairs. Poor Cinderella. Poor Cinderelli, said Jacques. Every time she finds a minute, that's the time when they begin it. Cinderelli, Cinderelli. And all the other mice gathered around Jacques began his angry song. Cinderelli, Cinderelli, night and day. Cinderelli, make the fire, fix the breakfast, wash the dishes, do the mopping and sweep and the dusting. They always keep her hopping. She goes around in circles till she's very dizzy. Still they holler, keep her busy, Cinderelli. You know what? Said Jacques when he finished. Cinderella is not going to the ball. What? Said another mouse. You'll see, said Jacques. They'll fix her. Work. She'll never get her dress done. One of the little girl mice was sitting in front of Cinderella's book. She looked at the open page. Hey, she said. She had an idea. We can do it. We can help our Cinderella. Now at chapter 10. Downstairs, just as Jacques had predicted, the stepsisters had lots of work for Cinderella to do. Here, Cinderella, take my dress. Mend my buttonholes, and press my skirt, said Gisella. And Cinderella, said Lady Tremaine, when you're through, before you begin your regular chores, I have a few other things for you to do. Very well, said Cinderella. She didn't know that right upstairs her little friends were already hard at work. As the animals scurried around getting the dress ready, they sang a new song. We can do it, we can do it, we can help our Cinderella. We can make the dress so pretty, there's nothing to do it really. We'll tie a sash around it, put a ribbon through it. When dancing at the ball, she'll be more lovely than all. In the lovely dress we make for her. Cinderella, hurry, gonna help her Cinderella. Got no time to dilly-dally, gotta get it going. All of the little animals were busy, some cutting, some sewing. We need some more trimming, said a mouse. Jacques and Gus knew just what to do. They scurried out the door. They'd find something pretty, something beautiful to add to the dress. As it happened, just then Drizella and Anastasia were going through their closets. They were throwing out all the things they didn't like. Why, look at this sash. I wouldn't be seen dead in it. She threw the sash to the ground. But look at these beads, said Gisella. They're trash. I'm sick of looking at them. She kicked the beads across the floor. A sash, beads, just the things Jacques and Gus, just the things. Jacques and Gus scooted across the floor and grabbed them up. They dragged their booty to the mouse hole and back upstairs. In the little attic room, quite a miracle had already taken place. The mice and birds had fixed the faded plain dress, and they had added pretty bows and sashes. Now it was a beautiful gown. It was fit for any ball, even one so grand as the prince's. Cinderella was still downstairs, working on the mending. She sat by the window, gazed longingly out. She could see the castle just beyond. Carriages were already pulling up, bringing eligible maidens to meet the prince. Now she would never get to go. Cinderella had no idea what her animal friends had accomplished. Chapter 11. From the window, Cinderella saw a carriage pull up in the front of her house. That would be the carriage for her stepmother and stepsisters. She went to tell Lady Tremaine. "Oh," said her stepmother, looking at her. "Why, Cinderella, you're not ready, child." "I'm not going," said Cinderella. "Not going," said Lady Tremaine. "What a shame." She looked at her daughters and smiled. "Of course there will be other times." "Good night," said Cinderella simply. Cinderella climbed the steps back to her room. Her face was long and she couldn't help it. She was thinking of how wonderful it would have been to go to the ball. The room was dark when she entered. Cinderella sighed and gazed out the moonlit window. Suddenly the room lit up all around her. There were her friends, the birds and mice. The birds flew up and opened the doors to a screen. There, behind the screen, was her beautiful party dress. "Surprise!" yelled her friends. Cinderella looked at the dress in shock. How can I ever, why, thank you so much," she cried. In a flash, Cinderella was dressed and racing down the stairs. "Please, wait for me," she shouted. Anastasia and Drizella were shocked to see that Cinderella had indeed gotten ready on time. Where had she gotten that dress? They were not at all pleased to see that Cinderella looked so very beautiful. "Cinderella," said Anastasia. "Mother, she can't go," cried Drizella. Lady Tremaine smiled. "Well, we did make a bargain, didn't we, Cinderella?" she said. She walked menacingly towards the girl. "And I never go back on my word." Drizella and Anastasia stared at their mother. Had she gone crazy? Was she really going to let Cinderella go to the ball? A nasty smile played on Lady Tremaine's lips. She touched the beads on Cinderella's neck. "How very clever," she sneered. "These beads." Drizella looked. She recognized the beads immediately. Why, those were hers, the ones she had just thrown away. "Why, you little thief! Give them here!" She grabbed at the beads and tore them right from Cinderella's throat. "And that's my sash!" cried Anastasia. She pulled at the dress and ripped the sash away. Lady Tremaine did not stop her daughters. The girls continued to tear at Cinderella. "Sneak! Thief!" They pulled at her and ripped at her dress until her beautiful ball gown was nothing more than rags. "Girls!" cried Lady Tremaine. "That's enough! Hurry along, both of you!" She and her daughters turned and walked haughtily to the carriage that waited for them. Cinderella ran crying into the garden. "It's no use at all," she sobbed. "There's nothing left to believe in." But as she was crying, a strange thing happened. Magic lights began to flicker in the night, and an odd-looking woman appeared. The woman was old and round. She wore a funny cape that fell over her shoulders and covered her head. The woman took Cinderella's head in her lap and caressed her hair. "Come on, dry those tears," she said brightly. "You can't go to the ball looking like that." Cinderella looked up at the strange woman, and then down at her own torn clothes. "Oh, but I'm not going to the ball," she said. "Of course you are," said the woman. "But we'll have to hurry, because even miracles take a little time." "Miracles?" said Cinderella. "Mm-hmm," said the woman. She looked around. "Now, what in the world did I do with my magic wand?" she mumbled to herself. "I was sure I—" "Magic wand?" said Cinderella. "That's strange," said the woman. "I always—" Cinderella looked at her. "What? Who was this woman talking about miracles? Of course. Why, you must be—" She started. "That's right," said the woman. "I'm your fairy godmother." And that was chapter 12. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will be out with part 3 of Cinderella tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and please give this a thumbs up. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody!